You're gonna say.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, everyone.
As usual, we're just going to take 2-ish minutes to let everybody come and funnel in.
Oh, I looked up the question. So we start off with a question that you guys have to drop in the chat as people are coming in. So it's favorite words of affirmation. I promised that question from last week. So your favorite words of affirmation.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, or like pet names or like words that like make you feel, I don't know, whatever this is in words.
Like fuzzy and warm.
Fuzzy and warm.
I know which one. Look, Mama, this one. Don't look.
I didn't look.
Not for you.
You guys have to drop it in the chat.
What about it?
That's the one word that makes me feel warm and fuzzy.
Warm and fuzzy.
For everybody who's coming in, we're going to start the conversation in a couple of minutes, but for the pre-conversation and pre-question is, what are your favorite words of affirmation, words that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside? I would agree, valid.
Well, it's fair.
Yeah.
All right. I won't have my phone with me, so I'll be back shortly.
Okay, for those wondering, Kat will be here with us on social media because she doesn't have her phone. I'm super excited.
Me too. I just spent the last hour and a half looking up definitions on Google, and some of them are pretty incredibly comedic.
That's my my bone to pick with Google is how they define.
Well, because how often do we just type on Google, define this or look up this, and we click one of the first 5 links and we're like, okay.
How's it go?
Like that. Right?
Like that.
I do it.
I was
like
watching.
So it's like when you're having a conversation with people, this is probably what they're referring to. At least newbies, or I mean, newbies, I don't want to use that, but new people.
Googlers.
All are welcome.
Everyone Googles.
The Googlers.
And I'm sorry I didn't use Firefox or Bing, so the answers for those may be different. the references are probably different.
That's the disclaimer.
So I apologize. I didn't reference all the search engines.
We got a reference point for next time. Someone said try using Copilot instead of Google. I don't even know what Copilot is. The more you know.
What? So I would imagine Copilot pulls from multiple sources.
So does Google. So it must be like an ultimate search engine.
Is it
Back
pulling?
to Google. We're back.
I love Google. I've been influenced.
Oh, it's AI generated by Microsoft. Interesting.
AI. There we go. Okay. Should we start? I mean,
Let's kick it off.
it's 7:33. Welcome everybody to Be on the Caller. It is the first call of September, and as we mentioned last month, and in the last call, we are now being joined by Master Joshua, who he wants to be referred to as MJ, or has that changed?
No, you can call me whatever you guys like. I mean,
Just not Joshua. That's too
just no. You know what? No.
And Master Joshua is
No.
Mary and I's master.
He. This guy.
He who does not know his name quite yet.
He who we shall not name. I'm not calling me that.
This is Mary and I's master, Master Joshua.
Oh wow, this is so awkward. Wow, maybe we should have talked that through a little more. No, it's call me.
As we say to everybody, where we have 5 questions, and within those 5 questions, there's multiple questions. You can answer them at any time within the call. So if it comes to you, please say it out loud. Be like me.
No, I'm really happy to be here. I'm really excited that we are opening this door onto both sides of the slash and the perspective, because I also have my full spectrum too, right? I'm not just Master Joshua 24/7, but I also have submissive desires and tendencies and perspectives and experiences, and also experiencing what you're reflecting from the dominant side, hearing what you're saying, being able to share my perspective in real time. Let me get that. But thank you.
Yes. So as Master Joshua gets the door, Mary and I started Beyond the Collar a couple of months ago, and it was just her and I. And to give a little backstory for the people who are new and joining us for the first time today, and to just say it for all the people who have been following us and coming to each and every call every week, we started this call. Mary came to me, and as I said before, we are co-slaves to the same master, Mary being a slave to Master Joshua a couple years longer than I. And we came to each other, she came to me because she and, oh my God, I'm all over the place. We wanted to build a deeper connection, and we wanted to talk and dive into what submission means to us. And we decided that it would be best, and why not, to process and have everyone here listen to us and to join us. That makes it sound like me people, but it's more so that we can just be more involved and one with the community, and have the community be more one and involved with us as well. Last month, we decided, but it had been coming up throughout the past couple of months, we had noticed that there were people in the call, people who identified as D-types, who wanted to share their perspective and their side from what us S-types were saying. And we thought, well, why don't we open the conversation to D-types by involving our master and having his dominant perspective to our submissive perspective. And as Master Joshua just said, he also explores submission, and surprise, 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 Mary and I also explore dominance. So,
and just for the record, I don't know if you guys have ever said this, but you two are dominant women in nature, in identity and character. Like, even though you're submissives in our power exchange, you are both dominant people. And by dominant, I mean confident in what you do, in the direction that you're taking your life and stuff like that. That's what I mean by confidence.
Yeah. Thank you. And this is what we're going to be doing for the whole hour, is talking about definitions. And by dominance, I mean, because this is important when you're having conversations with people, what do you mean when you call yourself a dominant?
What a segue. We didn't even practice that.
What do you mean when you call yourself a submissive? What is submission? What are people Googling, or what do you know about it? What is it? So we're going to be talking about that, and we're also going to be talking about MS relationships, because Mary and I are both in an MS dynamic. So what is the difference between DS and MS? What is the difference between mastery and slavery? Slavery and submission, or slavery and submissives, and all of these different ways different takes on the word. Because that also alters your search engine results as well, how you write it. And English is very fun because there's so many different ways that the word is defined and perceived. So a little housekeeping, because I kind of skipped over that. We are going to record the conversation on Zoom, and we also have TikTok and Instagram Live on our side. I just want to say that it is important for us to say that we don't want anybody to feel like they can't speak and join in on the conversation, because we're having other forms of social media and we're recording the conversation. It's the conversation that we're recording is mostly for us, so that we can revert back to and we can see how we can make the conversation better. And in terms of having other social media, we just want as many people to join the conversation and be here as well. It's very important that we can offer and have this for as many people, right?
It's been pretty impactful.
Yeah.
For the people.
Recording in progress.
For the people, thank you, Mary. For the people that get to watch it, who don't have the same access or aren't sure on how to get to us on Zoom, I'll get to us on Zoom. TikTok is huge.
Yeah. We apologize for all the for all of the door knocks and buzzers and rings. But yes, some more housekeeping before we can get started with all the definitions and differences and everything that I've been talking about already. So we've had some fun people, some hackers come in a couple weeks ago, and it was not a fun time for us and for our viewers and people joining in our conversation. So unfortunately, we had to take away the option to unmute yourself. But if you would like to talk and to answer a question or to join in the conversation, you can just use the little raise your hand feature at the bottom where it says react, and we will ask you to unmute, and you can we would really love if you join the conversation. But if you would also not like to talk verbally, the chat is always available for you. So you can just go in the chat and we will read the chat out loud. And also for privacy reasons, since we do have other social media platforms happening here, we won't say your username or who it is that wrote in the chat. We won't even say that when we're asking you or you're unmuting yourself. It's all anonymous in that sense. Did I miss anything, Mary?
No, you covered it beautifully. The only thing that I will share is, as Natalie alluded to, this conversation is all perspective based. So we're sharing based on our lifestyle and the way that we live and how we perceive it. So I don't want anyone to take what we say as like, this is the way that you have to go. We just share this as perspective based, so that as you're growing and as you're expanding, you can hear all the different perspectives and hear how we're all equally processing. Because the three of us also think, while similar in nature, we all think very differently as well. So I did just want to add that point in too.
Yes, no, thank you. That's very important. Very important that this is just this conversation, we're not professionals in a sense. I mean, we are, kind of, but not in the sense of like, this is how it is professional. It's perspective.
There is no true way, right?
Sorry, I'm just pulling up the questions for myself. But are we ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So the topic, MS and DS, definitions and differences. So how I think we should go about this is we should answer the questions, each of us. They're very straightforward. And then what I've done is I have Googled like dominance definition, and I pulled up and wrote down the first 3 basic definitions that have come up, and I think it would be interesting for me to read them, and so we could see what the internet is telling us is what these things are. Does that make sense?
Yes. Why don't you go first?
Okay. So first question is, what is dominance? What is submission? What is topping? What is bottoming? So, what is dominance? I think for me that dominance is an expression of leadership, of confidence, of power, of control, of taking the reins and the leash for some. To put it simply, I think that's what it is for me. How about you, Mary? That's Joshua.
Listen, I think everything that can go wrong today is going wrong.
Next week we're gonna do it in the studio because
the toaster oven's going off. All right, Mary, why don't you go? I'm the new guy here.
Well, he Uno reversed you.
I was being nice. I was like, all right, we'll let the new kid go. Dominance. I think dominance is often people that don't know their true power, but it's an individual that can walk into a room and take up space without knowing, and I think they do that through confidence and leadership, like to echo what you said, Natalie. I think that they're trailblazers in their own lives, whether that be in the kink community or outside of it. they're able to like show the work that they've put into becoming the dominant person that they are. And I think through the nature of just being this confident person and putting out that aura, they kind of command this like safe aura in the same breath. And like I think that that's what calls people to become or look to somebody like that as a dominant person, as of like, wow, you can really provide this space and you can hold this space, so I'm going to trust you in order to do that. And I think that a dominant person, while it's not the definition, I think that the qualities they have to have are like authenticity, resiliency, right? And the power to read a room in the same breath.
I like that you put like these, this is what I think the values of a dominant person are into that definition, or what is dominance.
How am I supposed to follow up on that? That's pretty solid. You guys really hit the nail right on the head. You used a lot better words than I would have.
What would you have said?
Confidence. I would have just used words. I mean, you guys laid out sentences. Confidence, leadership, humility. But like I see confidence as a person who has self-awareness and understands their, I don't want to say their limits, but I'll say their limits, or at least is willing to understand that there are limits. And when it comes, are we doing just dominance, or are we doing submission?
I mean, why don't we do that, dominance, and then I'll go over what the definitions are for dominance. So when I typed in dominance definition, the first three sources were Oxford Languages, Merriam-Webster, and Dictionary Cambridge. And Oxford Languages says power and influence over others. And this is not in terms of BDSM, so we'll get to the dominance definition BDSM after this. This is just dominance. This is what came up. The fact or state of being dominant. Great. Such as controlling, prevailing, or powerful position, especially in a social hierarchy. Dictionary Cambridge said the quality of being more important, strong, or successful than anything else of the same type, or the action of taking control of other people or animals in a forceful way, or the quality of liking to do this. When I typed in dominant definition, it said most important, powerful, or influential. Commanding, controlling, or prevailing over all others. Very important, powerful, or successful.
You know, it was no fair because you did all the research. That's why you had such a great.
I did this after I did my definition. I should have said that. I did my definition, I did this right beforehand. Liking to take control in a group and having natural authority. And the reason why I enjoyed doing this was because they're all similar in some way, but then there are certain words that change the whole definition. Like maybe it's less for dominance, but for other ones, when it comes up, I will point it out directly, because I was like, wow, that's crazy how I was reading it and I was like, oh, this is very similar to one of the other definitions that I just found, but then this one word changes the whole thing and makes it not consensual to consensual. Like, it's very interesting. And I'm going to do the dominance definition of BDSM after we talk about what does it mean to be a dominant. But, so I'm going to ask, what is submission? Who would like to answer that first?
Oh, wait, can I just say one thing on this dominance thing?
Yes, please.
I was processing all these definitions thus far.
Yes.
And I think about the dominant people I know in my life. And if I was to say a dominant person is someone who loves to take control of a room or to have control of things, like, they would throw up all over that. I would be like, absolutely not. I would not enjoy that. So I definitely echo what you were saying, is that these definitions can give you that thought of like, wow, that's a lot of pressure to put on to a dominant person to say, you love this. Like, this has to be your quality.
That's
right?
super true. That's super true. Because it's like liking to take control in a group and also having natural authority to do so.
It's funny because as you said this, I said I better shut up and stop being so mouthy, because I don't want, like, I want to be, I just want to be here, right? And it's like, it's so funny because that's where my thought process went when you read that. It's because I don't want to be that. It's like that's the last thing I want to do is that.
I hear you. I think it's important to see, like, what people might think dominance is based off of the fact that these are the first three things that come up. It's actually a little scary.
100%. And that's not to shame the people that can absolutely possess that definition too, because there are people that can absolutely come in and say, I want to run it all. Like, give it to me. Like, I'm ready for that. And it's like, it's such polar opposites, but still with that same umbrella of dominance. Like, those two people would unequivocally be on the same level, no matter how much space you want to take up.
It's funny because on our TikTok call earlier today, we were talking about the difference between dominance and domineering. And that is almost like a divider between what a dominant person is versus what a domineering person is. And there was a good friend of ours that said, be in a room with a dominant person and then be in a room with a domineering person and come back and tell me the difference. Right? And it's like, that was pretty impactful. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there with that liking to take control in a group or having natural authority. I don't know, doing this professionally, I come across those who are domineering and those who are dominant. On the community level, I know those who are domineering and who are dominant. And from the dominant ones, listen, they have enough issues. Like, they don't want to be in control of anything. I just want to come. I just want to get my ice cream cake. I just want to go sit in the corner and enjoy the festivities. Leave me alone. While I'm at it, I'll also pick up some cups. Right? So that's just coming from my perspective and experience. I've been doing this for a dozen years professionally on a community level, just about the same. And like you were saying, it's difficult if you're coming into this community without having information other than what the internet tells you or what you read in some books. It's like, and I like to refer to trying to learn how to swim in a book, right? It's the same thing. It's other people's theory or knowledge, or in some cases wisdom, and you have to learn from their experiences. And it's like, it's really not the same. You know, I think dominance comes from characteristics. I don't think is it an action? Yeah, it's an action, but that's based on characteristics or morals. And those morals come from confidence and everything you guys said. So thank you for your research and thank you for your sharing, because I didn't have to define it. Submission is giving away autonomy either by force or acquiescence negotiation. Both are a role of service, I think. It is the ability to control situations, perhaps, without the need or want of one's own gratification. Sorry, the last part was for dominance. No,
Yeah, I was
you.
like,
But as we think about the definition for submission, that's 100% something that could be very true, is that depending on the negotiation, I could argue that submissive people top from the bottom when they have to, and when it is cast upon them to, like, take over a room or to make sure something's done right, they're very I'll speak for my own being, is that I'm very, like, my eyes are everywhere. I know what everyone's doing. Like, I can run the room while being in service to the room in that same breath. And it's doing those subtle check-ins to make sure that everybody's okay, but letting them know that, like, if it's not, I'm not going to run and get somebody. Like, I'm going to handle it for you. Like, in that, because that's what is expected of me. But I totally agree with that definition.
that's awesome. I can run the room by being in service to the room. that's I haven't heard it put like that. That's pretty incredible. So should we talk about what our definitions of submission?
Yeah, let's run. Wait. Did we do the BDSM one?
I was gonna do that for the next one because the next question is, what does it mean to be a dominant? And that's what goes more into dominance.
Oh, yes. You're running the show.
So what about you two? What is submission? J Slice. You know, I'm gonna name you everyone is gonna
J Slice.
So submission is
MS everybody.
in real time. Let's see. Submission is following another's lead, taking someone else's direction, either by consent or non-consent. Right? It's like submission isn't always consensual. And what are some circumstances in which submission was non-consensual? Familial hierarchy, right? But it's like, here you are, and this is the rule you got to play. And a lot of relationships are built off of those first experiences with power exchange. But submission is bending to another's will, either by consent or non-consent, or following someone's lead, as I define it.
Yeah, I would agree with most, if not everything you've said. Surrendering to a higher power, a choice to surrender to another power, to a higher power. For me, when I answered this, I put choice. And I do realize that there are power differentials in which it's not a choice. Submission is not a choice. But through my experience, or through the lens that I answered the question with originally, before Googling all of these answers, I answered it in terms of my own submission. So mine was a choice to yield to a higher power. That was my answer of definition.
Oh God.
Sorry.
And I'm wearing my Master Joshua shirt today because he's joined us.
I'm feeling giggly today. That's all.
Me too.
Shameless promos, man. But I think it's important to call out too, because what you said too, Master, was that it's the natural dynamics. It's not so much like we're talking about BDSM solely as a submissive base. It's all your natural dynamics when you're at work, when you're in your family. So like those types of things where submission can be that sort of service or that surrender that you kind of get forced into just due to that hierarchy.
I wasn't the only one getting the herbal remedies this evening.
Oh. So what's those definitions, Natalie?
What's your... Oh, okay, sorry. You're right.
I thought we were doing submission.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Sorry. Submission. So for people who are joining us or have joined us, we are answering the questions, and then I have also typed in like dominance definition into Google and wrote down the first three things that came up, just so that we could get an idea of what comes up when we type into these search engines, and maybe gives us a better perspective of what people in the community possibly might think dominance and submission or mastery and slavery is, just so that we can build awareness about having to have our own definitions and to listen to what everyone else is saying. I think it's important. So for submission, when I typed in submission definition, Oxford Languages says the action or fact of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to the will or authority of another person. Merriam-Webster says the condition of being submissive, humble, or compliant, an act of submitting to the authority or control of another. Cambridge Dictionary, the act of allowing someone or something to have power over you, or the act of accepting the power or authority of someone else, or the act of offering something for a decision to be made by others or the thing that is offered.
What's cool about having definitions is you have a box, like you have something concrete, black and white, to say this is what it means, and you can choose any of the versions and saying this is the version that I agree with, because each of them have little twists. Like when you look up judgment, for example. Judgment is something we covered a couple days ago, and it's like you hear judgment and what you're thinking is the combination of the two definitions of making a decision based off of circumstances and it being condemning of you, right? When they're not the same. It's like you're making a judgment, you're making a decision based off of what you've collected, evidence you've collected, or eternal damnation, right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, it's not end eternal damnation.
Yeah, choosing versus being forced.
Yeah, right. So this is similar to understanding the definitions out there, understanding which one rings true to you, and then understanding that the other ones can be applicable to other people as you come across them. So having the conversation of, well, define submission is a very important conversation when it comes to connecting with somebody. Because if they have a totally different definition and understanding what submission means to you, you're going to have a bad time, right? If you guys come into a situation where it's time to, like, for some reason you're ready to play and you two haven't discussed what submission means to either of you, that's where mistakes happen, right? It's not knowing what does the other person understand this to be. So having the language is very important. Having all of the language is even cooler. So thank you for that.
Yeah. You're welcome. So I also typed in to submit. To submit definition, and it's accept or yield to a superior force or to the authority or will of another person. Subject to a particular process, treatment, or condition. I like that one a lot, actually. That was from Oxford Languages. Merriam-Webster, to yield to governance or authority, or to subject to a condition, treatment, or operation, or to yield oneself to the authority or will of another. Surrender. To permit oneself to be subjected to something. There's a lot to this one. Or to defer to or consent to abide by the opinion or authority of another. That was the one where I was like, to defer to or consent to, abide by. I was like, wait a second, that's kind of like three different, for me it was like three different pulling at each other words. By the opinion or authority of another. Cambridge Dictionary says...
That's essentially saying to do what you're told.
Yes.
Agreeing to do what you're told.
Yes, but the language to defer, for me it seemed like it was going in three different directions, but then again, that's again the importance of language and how we also say it to ourselves as well as to other people for it to make sense. And Cambridge Dictionary says to allow another person or group to have power or authority over you, or to accept something unwillingly. Any thoughts?
No, great job. No, that's pretty covering. It's pretty wide.
Yeah.
Mary, anything?
No, I was reading the comments and it says to consent isn't the same as to abide by. I feel like you are coerced. There's subtle connotation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like I read all those words without stumbling.
Yeah, it was beautiful. But I think why I particularly like subject to a particular process is because submission, and I think what we're going to more with MS when we get to those definitions, is for me, and I don't want to skip up to it, but slavery is a practice. So I like that the idea, like a practice of surrender. So I like this, like for this submit definition, or to submit is to subject to a process or a particular process, treatment or condition. Like it does in a way feel medical.
For sure.
So.
But I've been thinking too about like, and like this may take us off topic, so I'll be quick. But it makes me think about the importance of titles, like how you were saying, Master. It's like I need to classify myself as this, and this is what this means to me, because of how widespread all of this is. It's almost like those labels are what we put to make our own definition of, like when I call myself this is what I'm saying, right? And it's taking the combination of everything that we're talking through and making it a full figured thought of like, this is how it relates back to me.
You know, and it's funny because as we're talking about it, when Slave Karma and I put a pause in our dynamic, it was because of the way people would refer to her as my slave through their own definition, right? And the way she felt they were looking at her through their definition, essentially trying to treat her a certain way or to speak to her a certain way, which none of you guys are having that, right? So it's like it created almost like an imposter syndrome. It created a lot of doubt and resentment towards the label, until we were able to reconcile that, listen, it's what you say it is. It's what we say it is. It's not what people, and when they come at you, you correct them, right? And you stand your ground and you tell them, this is what it means to me. Mm-hmm. Because it is still within the context of total power exchange, right? We're not playing around with it. It's just not what you think.
Yeah. Domineering. those people. This is what a slave is.
Yeah. It's like, it's crazy.
It has to be, because this is what I think it is. Like, okay, well, great. Well, let's end the conversation now, because we're not going to have a conversation. So what is topping and what is bottoming?
I think for me the simple definition is the top is the one giving the action, the bottom is the one receiving the action. I associate it closely with energy exchange. I'd say they're the same thing. I also say they both coexist at the same time, power exchange and energy exchange. Either because someone's leading and someone's following, right? It's like, even if we've spoken about boundaries and limits and there is the absence of power exchange recognition, someone's still leading that dance and someone's still following. With the agreement of there is no power exchange being acknowledged, but as the lead, right, it's different than as the doer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless the circumstance is, can you paddle me 45 times, right? It's like we've really broken down what's going to happen, and the top is following that script versus the top being the creator of the experience. Meaning the bottom just says, I would like to be flogged, and allows the top to lead that dance. Right? It's still not it's not a power exchange per se, but someone is still responsible for that, for leading that. That's my personal technical observation and relationship with the two, topping and bottoming, and then the two combined.
Yeah, so there could be dominance and submission in topping and bottoming, but there doesn't have to be. It could just be top, bottom, I want to hit you with this, great, let's do it. That's kind of my
And also bottoms can be dominant and subs can be tops, right? And it's doesn't make you any less because of you liking whatever you like. It's all a myth, right? It's like, listen, enjoy your body, play with it, learn things about it, experience, don't be afraid, right? When you feel afraid, ask yourself why, and that's the shadow work that has to be done so you can access it, right? It's like, listen, if you guys saw what we did in private, it's like, master, what? But it's like, just for the sheer joy of experiencing someone's care physically, like energetically. If it's like touch, if it's impact, if it's walking someone on a leash, right? It's still the ability to experience and share something together.
Yeah, you guys covered it for me. The comment that was just made, I really agree with, and it said, I'd like to add a caveat for top bottom in that they are episodic, more event driven than relation driven, and I think that was beautifully said. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's
absolutely
very helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, unless you're like consistent play partners, right? And whereas one's generally the top and the other bottom, like rope practice, for example. Generally have the top and the bottom, and there is the absence of power exchange, but they're play partners. Right, cool. Thank you, Tennessee.
And I know we've gotten into this topic before, like, of the difference between top, bottom, dom, sub, and they can all be interchangeable. Like, I think that's just like the first way of putting it, is that as everything that we're saying, whatever you connect to, it can be the same, and it can be driven by the same definitions as we just explained. Dom and sub, that can be the same definitions for top and bottom as it relates to your life. And I think it's like we were saying too, it's just the absence of that consistent nature, because then I feel like you kind of transform into the other things as you move along, because then it's like that once you dedicate the power, then it's like, well, let's revisit how we're referring to ourselves Because I've heard masters and slaves say that, like, the tops and bottoms, like, they're in MS dynamics too.
Yeah, I don't have any definitions for topping and bottoming, but I can say that when I was researching, especially when I was typing in like dominance in relation to BDSM or submission in relation to BDSM, like they were like, it was all interchangeable. Like people were saying, oh, you submissives are tops, like it was going back and forth. Slaves are, or sorry, I mean that submissives are bottoms, slaves are bottoms. Like it was all interchanged and all of the things. And I was beforehand I was looking up in the new bottoming book and the new topping book, I think that's what it's called. And I was trying to find a definition, and what I actually like just a very like straightforward definition of bottoming and topping. And what I liked about it, and what was also very frustrating about it, is that the whole book is a definition. So I couldn't find just like a straightforward, because it's so in depth about what it is. And I think what's important about it is that what they go into depth about is that there isn't just a definition, like there's information. And what topping is a bunch of information, and this is what it can be for multiple different people. And if it's I think it's, I mean, I didn't get to read the whole thing, but I think it's worth the read. My recommendation, based off of not reading it but looking into it.
No, they are good books. I read them a couple years ago. And with anything, get your information, get your education from multiple sources. Things will overlap. The things that overlap are more likely, more often not than, are gold. Things that don't overlap, look into them if you're curious about them, to see the validity of the information. And if it resonates, if you find that rings true for you, run with it. But understand there is not going to be a single true way, right? That's not true. Rule number 1 is don't be a dick. Just be a good person. If you want to build trust and safety, be a good person. Do what you say what you do. Transparency, right? It's like, to access dominance and submission, you have to build trust. It's not given to you. It's not guaranteed. No one's owed dominance. No one's owed submission, right? And it's like, what does it mean to you? Read these books and get more language so that you can advocate for yourself as best as you possibly can.
And that will lead us into next week's topic, I believe, is self-advocation.
SM 101 as well. Really solid book by Jay Wise. There's a lot of good information out there. KingCollective.net as well. Shameless plug-in.
Great. Shall we go into, I believe it's what does it mean to be, what's the next question?
It is.
Thank you.
What does it mean to be a dominant? What does it mean to be a submissive? And then we'll do the same for master and slave.
Mm-hmm. Master, what does it mean to be a dominant?
Oh, story time. Let me get my pipe and my hat out. What does it mean to be a dominant? Oh, God, you got me with my pants down. I was starting to run it through my head. So, I think it comes back to the word confidence for me. The ability to be sure-stepped and to control the scenario, to control what's happening. I see it as guidance. Now, the tough part about it is, and this is my relationship with dominance, I'm like the reluctant dom most of my life. And a lot of the submission I get comes from safety I've created, either through safe space or connection. And a lot of my relationships are, the consent approach is yes and so no. I trust you, Joshua. You have all the consent you want, blanket consent, period. And those are given to me. So I have to be responsible for that. And when I say let's dance, I'm leading that dance, providing them the safety and the assurance that I will be responsible with what they've given me. That's my relationship with dominance. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, I believe so. What does it mean to be a dominant? I think it was helpful that you kind of answered it as, what does dominance mean to you, or what is your experience with dominance or to be dominant, especially within your relationships? I think I like how you took it that way.
That's what works for me,
Yeah.
right? It's just like, and for me to be submissive, I need a person who's decisive and sure, and the same things I'm willing to make as set as the example is the same example I'm willing to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like someone who is confident in what they're doing, has high morals, right? Isn't gonna use me beyond what I'm here consensually, with informed consent, supporting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm here to provide you my time, my body, my resources,
Mm-hmm.
because I believe what you're doing. And like those have to be solid. Like the way I support you guys on your dreams. Right? Whatever you want, I support you, period. Whatever you want, I'm there in service and in submission to your goals. And that's like that, I trust you with that. So it's just switching the seat of that perspective for me.
I think what was very important in what you said, or the key word for me, was trust. What does it mean to be a dominant? A dominant to me, or who you are as a dominant, is for me, at least, I mean, because we're going to go into MS next, and we have an MS relationship, so I guess what I'm saying is, it feels like I can't really say how it is for people who are in labeled DS relationships. But for me, trust is the key component, and time is the magic ingredient in order to get to the point of trust, or complete trust, or trust also feels like a continuum. Like it feels sometimes like I have a full trust, and then something happens, and then it feels like I have none. And that's not necessarily that doesn't necessarily mean that the amount of trust that I have in you changes at all. It's mostly the faith in my own understanding of what trust is within the relationship. In terms of my own, what does it mean to be a dominant, because I'm exploring my own dominance, and what does that look like? And as Master Joshua said, and as we have said before, both Mary and I, we are both very dominant people outside of our power exchanges as slaves. And something that is very captivating about dominance, or chosen dominance, within BDSM is the fact that for me it is so uncomfortable. Like, it is so difficult to manifest and to choose confidence when all I do all day is actually a slave to dominance. It's like I have to make all these decisions for myself outside of my power exchange, and I am a slave to having to make all these decisions to myself. And so for me, the difference in my everyday dominance and chosen dominance in BDSM, or to be a dominant or to practice dominance, is the fact that I am choosing to practice dominance, and I am choosing to be the top or the dominant, or whatever that looks like. So, I don't know if that answered it either.
Mary?
I think about myself as a dominant person, and I think that when I'm in a dominant exchange where I get to be the top, it's the delivery of energy, of like what I get to feel as an experience as a slave. Like, I want to be able to gift that to somebody through like me being the top of it, and like I feel like that's my responsibility, and like where I thrive is like the care for nature, right? Like I want to service you from the top, but make you think that you're doing it for me because I desire it, right? But it's almost like an interchangeable gift that like we could give one another, of like knowing that at the end of the day your goal is to provide me service. If that service can also be enjoyable for both of us, I think that that's where I come to from, like a dominant lens. And I agree, like there's a level of responsibility and accountability that goes into being a dominant, but more versely it's the experience from start to finish. It's the dance that we refer to as the dance. It's just making sure we get all the steps in place. And then like if we're gonna trip a little, like don't worry, I got this. Like I'll take the move this one. But it's that interchangeable fun that can come as you explore.
Was there a fifth question?
So did we answer what does it mean to be a submissive, or did we just do dominance?
I did submissive as
You
well.
did submissive too. I'm just gonna. Or was that a question?
Is it chosen dominance for you more difficult? I can't see because that little emoji
Is
thing.
chosen dominance for you more difficult to inhabit with different individuals? Is that what you meant, Lizzie? Is chosen dominance for you more difficult to inhabit with different individuals? Is it more difficult for you, Natalie, when the perceived person is being more dominant than you, or is it a general difficulty regardless of the person's energy? No. If it's in terms of when I'm more dominance, when I'm expressing my dominance in our relationship sexually, because that's normally when it comes up. Right?
That's fair.
It's very easy.
That's fair.
Because I'm comfortable.
Hand puppetry is real.
Because it's there's a comfortability. So I think for me it's more so like the pickup play element of practicing just like on the spot. All right, put your dominant cap on, practice, or put your top cap on, or whatever. And this is where we're going into definitions, and I'm now interchanging them. That's when it's more difficult and it's uncomfortable.
Really?
Yes, 100%.
Why is it uncomfortable?
Because it feels so wrong. If you would have asked me in the beginning of my introspection and self-actualization journey a couple of years ago, I would have said that if someone had come up to me and asked me to top them at a party, it would be a complete turn off. Like completely, I would be completely turned off. I wouldn't even want to like.
Yeah.
Lizzie?
That's interesting, because I'm the opposite. Like, to be dominant with Sir, it doesn't sit well with me for whatever reason. Like, even though there are situations where, like, my dominance that comes into the relationship, like making sure the grocery lists are taken care of, the food's in the house, cooking for him, while those could be perceived like as I'm taking control and doing the thing, it's actually a service-oriented thing for me. But the concept of being dominant to people outside of our dynamic, it's the opposite for me. I don't have as many qualms, I guess. Yeah, it's a weird thing to wrap your head around when you're used to wanting to inhabit a certain mindset or space, and then branching out and exploring the other side of things. It's interesting to do.
Thank you for sharing that, Lizzie. Right, I wrote down as service as the responsibility of the submissive. Right, I'm on you about this list, goddammit, because if you want your dinner, this is what I need. Arm me, right?
Yeah.
Help me succeed. Awesome. Thank you for that. Damn it, I've got more tools now.
Someone said I added a clause in my contract that I had to be free of their dominance when I am engaged in managing my organizational work because I know that my people pleaser will kick in.
Solidly put. Thank you so much for that.
Mary, do you want to answer? So loud. What does it mean to be a submissive for you?
Sure. Super quick, because I know we're coming up
Yes.
on time. For me, what does it mean to be submissive? I think that it's the idea of surrender, and being able to let someone lead, with that same negotiated choice, right? Like, I think for me, if we were going to talk about master and slave, if I think about the combination of submissive to slave, I would say that it's a choice. Like, I feel like when I talk about this out loud, some people go, oh, but I think that, like, when I was a submissive and somebody would be like, hey, why don't you do this? I'd be like, what a nice suggestion. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. But, like, in my power exchange, if it is said, hey, how about you do this? It's not a second thought. It's more like, when are you doing this? Like, it's a different shift of, like, this is what I needed to be done, and I'm not going to second guess it because I know that my negotiated means and measures have been cared for already, and that whether this thing is uncomfortable or not, it's going to excel me to this next piece of life, whatever that looks like. And so I think that while for me those two things are different, I've seen submissives have slave tendencies, right? Like, I think that those two things are just so very close in relation to one another. But as I think about submissive, I think about slaves and the gift of surrender and service to say, whatever your vision is, I want to see that come true, with that exchange of helping me get to where we need to go in our own lives. So.
I don't know if I said this before, but to me, if like it would be someone coming up to me as the D side of it, the difference between you can guide me, the permission of you can guide me versus you can direct me.
You're talking about MS
and DS. Yeah, MS versus DS. You can guide me. I give you consent to guide me, versus I give you consent to direct me. I think that's the closest I've been able to define it.
Yeah.
Is with this one just now?
MS being guide?
No,
or
MS
being direct.
Direct. Yeah. I like that. I like that differentiation.
And then what you said, Mary, around tendencies, right? To which degree? Because there's times where people who have been submissive to me, I wasn't their dominant, but they would follow my lead. They'd ask me to direct them through certain things because they needed that level of permission, right? Mm-hmm. Or things along those lines, because that's where permission slips come from, right? It is giving my bad. Giving needing someone to help motivate you to take that extra step.
For me, to a degree, and I think we can kind of go in that we're going into MS versus DS and what are the difference in the concepts. They're both role play. And to a degree, it's also like preference. I mean, I do believe that masters have much more experience in community engagement, in the practice of what all of these terms mean to them, in skills. I do believe that. And to a degree, I don't necessarily completely know how do I say? Like the complete difference between submission and slavery. Like for me, it feels like masters and dominance, there's like they're put to the side.
Well, because we're almost out of time, but we didn't talk about master over dominance. And a master is a master of their craft, is leadership, is humility, education, mentorship, right? Years of investment into the skill or training, and training and volunteering and setting the example and making mistakes and recovering. And it's like there's a lot that, as I acknowledge, if a person introduces me to themselves as master anything, this is the bar I'm setting, and now you've set yourself up to be compared to that bar, because this is what's expected of you. Mm-hmm. Just like if a doctor walks into a room, they spend years into their craft, right, through their education. So have masters and mistresses within this lifestyle. If you're going to introduce yourself as something, you best be ready to be judged by that title you carry, because there's a lot of responsibility from that. And that's why we do the covering ceremony the way we do. It's not a surprise covering ceremony, right? It's like, do you agree to accept the responsibility that's going to come with this title of leadership? And it's like, if you say yes, then we'll move forward. Because if someone says, I'm master, flip a switch, right? It's like, oh, and you're new? Oh, wow, you're so mind blown by it, because it's like, oh, a master, right? The Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. It's like, but what bar are we setting it to?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I guess what I'm trying to get at is a master doesn't have to have a slave, but they can have a submissive and not have any slaves. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
a master needs a slave.
To be a master.
To be a master. Like, there's like but then not necessarily, because if we're looking at master of craft, master of lifestyle, master of, right? So not necessarily. You're right. Hold on. There. I'm going to take my thumb trick back, because I screwed that one up. No thumb trick for you.
But it's also...
No, you're right. You're
but no. But also what I'm thinking about when that comes up is like, masters are covered or like they're good in this covering, like this sort of like, you are a master, you have... That's all
make believe. Listen. The whole covering ceremony, all that stuff is role. It's all of this is role play. Every single bit of it is make believe. We are just agreeing to play by these rules. There is no governing mastership of master Jedis out there. I mean, but I won't brag.
Again, this is all perspective, everybody, all perspective.
Yeah, but it's like there's no, and you'll see this as you dig. There's no true way. There's history of how it got here, and there's leather culture and stuff like that. But it's regional, it's local, it changes with communities. Everyone has their way, and what we've done at the Kink Collective is we found our way, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, this is how we define what it means to be leather. This is the way we promote it. This is the way we live it, and everyone else, because as I define it, it's about love, and love is about acceptance, and I accept you as you are. Period. Right? And like, to me, that's what leather is. It's like, it's just about acceptance in all the things, including the kinky things.
It only has importance within the subculture it exists.
Yeah. Or the people that it influences. Because if you see someone walking down the street in a leather jacket, in some areas it's like, it could be cultural influence too.
Anyone can walk around with the collar on their neck if they wanted to.
Awesome. Thank you guys. It was so much fun.
We needed 2 hours for this conversation, to be honest. But let's welcome Master Joshua again to be on the collar.
We're gonna find out everything's fake. This is not real.
It's all role play.
It's all role play. We pulled the curtain back on the first one. Way to go.
He's been waiting to come on and be like, you know what? No. So do you guys want to promote what's coming up in the space? Please, not all at once, because it's overwhelming.
So let's see. We have the rope share, the rope intensive, 6-week rope intensive starting this Thursday here in the sanctuary of East Harlem. We have every Friday open play space and dungeon where the lights are up and the music's down. The idea is socializing and skill sharing. And Saturday,
Saturday, I believe we have, if you're in
Resonance.
New York City,
We have Resonance. Doors open at 8. Cat's in the back. And then we have,
And that's it.
and that's it.
You can also go on the Kink Collective FetLife page and you can see all the events that are happening in the space. And you can also see all of the conversations that we are having online. And
Oh, also, if there's any pain people on here who are in the New York City area, we are looking for bottoms for pro dom training that is at the moment is invite only, but what I'm looking to do is build a group of folks who approach professional domination through the therapeutic introspective standpoint. So if that's something of interest and you're in the New York City area, please touch base with us. And also we're going to drop the links for the books in the chat.
yes.
Thank you guys so much. You guys are phenomenal. So much fun, Mary. So much fun, Natalie. Slaves.
Next week at 7:30 p.m. we will be back here, and I believe the conversation is self-advocating in the lifestyle.
I think so.
Oh, that was today. We spoke about that today.
Yes, you segued in. You had no idea that was what our conversation was